Welcome to Reflect with Ed Fassio. Get ready to experience one of the world's first 100% digitally generated podcasts, where we take a step back, dive deep, and strive to learn new things. Join us as we unpack thought-provoking ideas, personal reflections, and inspiring stories to help you stay in the know. Reflect is brought to you by the minds at ByteBrain and powered by emerging technologies from Google, HeyGen, OpenAI, and 11 Labs. Thanks for tuning in. Now, relax and prepare to reflect.
All right, get ready to dive in because today we're tackling biohacking. And judging by this pile of articles, blog posts, and even a TED Talk transcript you sent, you're ready to optimize everything.
Sounds like you're tuned into something huge right now, a real movement. People taking charge of their health and well-being in ways we never even imagined before.
No kidding. It's a bit of a wild west out there though, right? Tech gurus, yogis, everyone's got the secret sauce to a better you. But you know me, gotta dig into the nitty-gritty. So what is biohacking exactly? How's it different from just living?
The million-dollar question. It's about seeing your body like a system. Your biology, it's like a program. And with biohacking, you're finding the right inputs to get those optimized outputs. More energy, that laser focus, maybe even living longer. Biohacking says, let's tweak the code and see what we can get.
Okay, love the analogy. So we're talking about taking control, becoming the master programmers of our own biology.
Exactly. It's about realizing we're not just along for the ride in these bodies. We've got choices, and those choices directly affect how we feel, how we perform, even how we age.
Empowering stuff. But with so many different approaches out there, some as simple as using a foam roller, others talking about like injections and stuff, where do we even start?
You've hit on a key point. Not all biohacks are equal. Some, solid science. Others, well, the jury's still out. And that's where a deep dive comes in. Sifting through the hype, finding those promising trends, the ones that could actually make a difference.
Music to my ears. So where do we begin this self-optimization journey?
Let's talk about those miracle molecules, peptides, nootropics, promising everything from sharper thinking to that youthful glow.
Yeah.
But are they too good to be true?
Oh, I'm all ears. Peptides, those tiny proteins that supposedly boost energy, brain power, and nootropic, like brain-boosting supplements? Right. Spill it.
You're on the right track. But here's where it gets interesting, and a tad tricky. Remember how you're all about knowledge quickly but thoroughly. With these molecules, the risks are just as important as the benefits.
Okay, so proceed with caution. What are the potential downsides to these so-called miracle workers?
First off, regulations playing catch-up means manufacturing, especially for peptides, can be iffy. We're talking potential heavy metal contamination, and that's a big deal when many are given via injection.
Whoa, hold up. Injection risks on top of potentially contaminated stuff. Not so miraculous anymore.
Gives you pause, right? And it highlights a fundamental biohacking principle, bioindividuality. Just because a peptide or nootropic works wonders for one person doesn't mean it will for you. We're all walking experiments of one.
So personalized approaches are key.
You got it. It's about what works for your biology, not just the latest trend. That's where personalized nutrition comes in. It's more than calories. It's about how the quality of your food impacts you.
That reminds me, a bunch of these articles, even that video with Dr. Mercola, stressed food sourcing, one called Soil, the New Frontier. Bit dramatic or what?
Might sound like it, but it's a good point. Like those peptides, it's not just the what, but the how. Modern farming, while efficient, has decreased the alkaloid content of our produce.
Hold on, alkaloids, I've heard that, but remind me.
Think of them like natural compounds in plants, tons of health benefits. But now, even if we're eating our greens, we might not be getting what our grandparents did. Night and day, really.
So what's a biohacker to do? Become farmers on the side?
Not quite, but you're onto something. It's about being a conscious consumer. Organic's a good start, but even better. Local produce from farmers who prioritize soil health.
So back to basics, reconnecting with our food sources, like our ancestors.
You nailed it. And this ancestral wisdom meets modern science. It's a big theme in biohacking, especially with how we move our body.
Oh, you mean how everyone's ditching hours on the treadmill for shorter, more intense workouts?
Exactly. AAT, HR, all those acronyms you'd hear in a CrossFit gym. But it's not about pushing to the max. It's about how our ancestors likely moved bursts of energy, then rest.
So not about the gym for hours, but working out smarter. I like it. But what about recovery? Can't go all out all the time.
You're right. It's about smarter exercise. And that means prioritizing recovery. A lot of the sources, especially that 27 Biohacking Trends article, really stressed balancing growth with repair. You need both for true optimization.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this balance. How are biohackers approaching recovery?
Well, they're ditching the old ice baths for high-tech recovery tools. We're talking whole-body vibration, PEMF therapy, even red light therapy.
Whoa, that's next level. PEMF, red light, sounds like a sci-fi movie. Break those down for me.
PEMF, or pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, think of it like recharging your cells. Electromagnetic pulses stimulate cell repair, reduce inflammation. And red light therapy, boosting energy production in your cells, like photosynthesis for humans.
Okay, that makes sense. So these therapies give our bodies the tools to recover faster, more efficiently. But what about something a little more, well, accessible? Not all of us have those fancy biohacking gadgets.
You're right. Not everyone can have a biohacking spa at home. That's where ancient wisdom comes in. Mindfulness, meditation, even just being in nature have huge effects on our physiology and recovery. Remember how that beginner's guide talked about changing your breathing to actually shift your brainwaves?
Oh, right. Different brainwave states like alpha and theta for relaxation and focus, and how binaural beats or certain music can tap into those states.
Exactly. Hacking your brainwaves, and anyone can do it with headphones. And what's fascinating, this ties into flow state, that peak performance and focus. Apparently, things like specific music and activities can help us get into flow more easily.
Wait, so listening to the right music can make me more productive. I am so there. But before we go full-on brainwave hacking, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the futuristic side of biohacking. RFID chips, sensory implants, all that.
Ah, yes, the bleeding edge. It might seem like science fiction, but it makes you think about human potential in a whole new way.
Totally. Like, where's the line between enhancing ourselves and, well, becoming something else?
The big question. But before we go down that rabbit hole, let's ground ourselves with something that came up in almost every single source you sent.
You're talking about intermittent fasting, right? It's everywhere these days.
It's definitely having its moment, and for good reason. This NEJM article does a great job explaining the science, showing it's not just about cutting calories. We're talking about flipping a metabolic switch, making your body use stored fat for fuel.
That's fascinating. So it's not just how much we eat, but when we eat. Tell me more about this metabolic switch. What's going on in the body?
Well, when we fast, our bodies go through this fascinating process called autophagy.
Autophagy. Sounds intense. Break that down for me.
Think of it like spring cleaning for your cells. During autophagy, your body gets rid of old, damaged parts, making room for new, healthy ones. It's like hitting the reset button.
So it's like giving our bodies a chance to clear out the junk. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And it goes beyond just cellular cleanup. Intermittent fasting also impacts our hormones. Insulin, growth hormone, which can lead to fat burning, cellular repair, even protection against aging.
Wow. Just changing when we eat can have that big of an impact.
It really shows how interconnected our bodies are. Small tweaks, big changes.
Okay, so intermittent fasting isn't just some fad diet. It's a powerful tool for improving our health at a fundamental level. But it's not one size fits all, is it? I mean, the sources mention different methods.
You're absolutely right. There's no single right way. Some people thrive on alternate day fasting, eating normally, then significant calorie restriction. Others prefer 5.2 eating normally for 5 days, restricting for 2. And then there's time-restricted feeding, shrinking your eating window each day.
Right, like only eating between, say, noon and 8 p.m. That one seems popular and actually doable, unlike some of those crazy restrictive diets.
It is, and the science seems to back it up even if you don't drastically change what you're eating.
That is wild. It's like we've been so focused on what we eat that we've forgotten about the when. But before we get too excited about fasting, I'm curious about the practical side. It can't be as simple as just skipping meals, can it?
Well, it's not always easy. We're programmed to eat 3 meals a day, plus snacks. Breaking free from that can be tough.
Okay.
And there are things to consider, like how it interacts with medications, potential side effects.
That makes sense. It seems like with any of these biohacking techniques, knowledge is power, and it's always best to talk to a doctor before making big changes.
Absolutely. Biohacking is about taking control of your health, but it's vital to do so safely, with guidance, especially if you have any health conditions.
Couldn't agree more. This has been an incredible start to our biohacking deep dive, but I think we've earned a little break.
I agree. We've covered a lot.
When we come back, we'll delve even deeper into this fascinating world, exploring those ethical questions around human augmentation and the surprising link between our gut and our brain. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we're exploring this wild world of biohacking.
And believe me, we're just getting started. Before the break, we talked about food and fitness, but now I want to get into the really mind-blowing stuff. Biohacking meets technology.
Where science fiction starts to feel a little too real, right?
Yeah.
But seriously, this is where we see how different everyone's motivations for biohacking can be. Some people, they're all about those superhuman abilities, while others are using technology to do good. Like that article about Mohammed Dawafi and his company Cure Bionics.
Bionics, right? They were in that Wired Middle East piece, the one about affordable, customizable prosthetics. It's like biohacking with a heart.
Exactly. Empowering people, not just enhancing them. And then you have people like Liviu Babbitt's pushing the boundaries of sensory experience with those wild implants like NorthSense.
That one blew my mind. An implant that lets you feel the Earth's magnetic field, like having a built-in compass.
Right. Babbitt's talks about expanding our senses, creating totally new ways of experiencing the world, forming memories. It makes you wonder, what does it even mean to be human?
It's exciting and a little creepy, right? Which brings up a big point. The ethical side of all this. We can't talk biohacking without the potential downsides.
Definitely not. As we get better at merging technology with our bodies, we've got to ask some tough questions. Where do we draw the line? Who gets to say what enhancements are okay? And what about the people who can't afford this stuff?
It's a tightrope walk between progress and disaster, like a real-life Black Mirror episode. And speaking of ethical dilemmas, I keep thinking about those RFID chips and NFC implants.
Right, the ones that can be so helpful for people with disabilities, making everyday things easier, giving them more independence.
Exactly. But then there's that other side, the potential for misuse, for surveillance, for creating a world where some are enhanced and others are left behind. Slippery slope.
It is. And having these conversations about ethics and fairness is crucial now, before these technologies get even more advanced and potentially out of reach for most people. Biohacking should benefit everyone, not just a select few.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, let's switch gears for a second and talk about something less sci-fi thriller and more inner ecosystem, the microbiome. Every other article you sent mentioned how crucial it is for our overall health.
It's true. It's not just what we put in our bodies, but also about those trillions of tiny organisms living in our gut. We're only starting to understand how much power they have over everything, from digestion to mood to our immune system.
It's mind-boggling. But it makes sense. We're not just individuals. We're entire ecosystems. So how do we make sure our inner ecosystem is thriving?
That's where things get really interesting. It's not as easy as just taking a probiotic. Remember, bioindividuality. Same goes for our gut bacteria. What works for one person might not for another. It's about figuring out the right foods and lifestyle for your microbiome.
So personalized nutrition for our gut bugs, I'm here for it. But with all the conflicting info out there, how do we even know what's good for our gut?
It's a lot to process. One thing that came up a lot was diversity. The more diverse our gut bacteria, the better. So instead of strict diets, it's about eating all kinds of plant-based foods. Fruits, veggies, legumes, whole grains. Think color and variety.
Keep those little guys guessing. But what about those times when our gut isn't exactly cooperating? You know, when things get a bit backed up. What's the biohacking take on that?
Now that's interesting. Remember the gut-brain connection. Turns out stress really messes with our digestion.
Oh, tell me about it. My stomach's like a stress detector.
Right. So biohackers are turning to things that calm the nervous system and reduce stress. Mindfulness, meditation, yoga, alongside those gut-healthy foods.
Wait, so you're saying chilling out can actually help with, well, everything else running smoothly?
I'm listening.
It's all connected. Our gut, our brain, our environment, it's this intricate web of systems.
Mind-blowing. Speaking of mind-blowing, we have to talk about that TED Talk with Todd Coleman and those temporary tattoo biosensors. Next-level biohacking. Amazing, right? Imagine tracking your vitals with a simple tattoo instead of bulky equipment. Makes healthcare more accessible and less invasive.
Incredible. It makes you realize we're just scratching the surface with biohacking and the future of health. But before we go full-on techno-utopia, I want to go back to balance. It seems like with all these advancements, it's easy to get caught up and forget the simple things.
So true. It's easy to get obsessed with the newest biohack, but true well-being comes from a holistic approach. It's about finding that balance between pushing limits and respecting our body's natural rhythms. It's about combining ancient wisdom with cutting-edge science.
I love that. It's not about being superhuman. It's about being the best you.
Exactly. And that's different for everyone. Biohacking's a journey, not a destination. It's about listening to your body, experimenting, and finding what works for you.
And being open to new ideas, questioning what we think we know, and never stop learning.
Absolutely. So, with that in mind, are you ready to explore the final frontier of biohacking longevity?
Oh, you know it. Extending our lifespan, cheating death, maybe even immortality. Now that's a biohack I can get behind.
Well, get ready, because things are about to get really interesting.
So, when we were talking about living longer, it got me thinking, what's the point of a longer life if you don't feel your best?
That's the key, isn't it? It's not just about adding years to your life, but adding life to those years. And that's what makes the biohacking approach to longevity so fascinating. It's not about searching for a fountain of youth. It's about optimizing our health span, not just our lifespan.
Okay, you've got my attention. How do we actually do that? What are people doing to slow down aging?
Well, you'll be glad to know a lot of it comes back to what we've already talked about. Good food, moving our bodies naturally, managing that stress, and a healthy gut.
So the things that make us feel fantastic now are also the keys to aging well. I'm on board.
Exactly. It's that long game, making choices today that pay off down the road. But of course, you've got those pushing the limits. Remember Brian Johnson, the tech billionaire, spending millions on his Blueprint project to reverse aging?
Oh yeah, that guy. That Freethink video where they tried his routine for a month, 60 pills a day, same 3 meals, I give them credit for trying.
Not for everyone, but his dedication is something else. And while most of us aren't about to overhaul our lives like that, he's finding out some interesting stuff about aging, using data and tech to track his progress in crazy detail.
He's like a walking biohacking experiment. But you know what struck me? Even with all that high-tech stuff, he still focuses on the basics. Sleep, exercise, stress management. Almost like he's saying, the tech is cool, but don't forget the fundamentals.
Exactly. And that's a good takeaway from all this biohacking talk. It's not about choosing between old wisdom and new science. It's about combining them. It's about understanding that our bodies are complex, affected by so many things.
Like they say, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Speaking of parts, what about our environment? Feels like that plays a big role in our health, too.
Huge. We've talked about what's going on inside, but what about outside?
Right. We're not isolated beings. We're always interacting with the world around us. And that has to be affecting our biology somehow, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's where bioharmonization comes in. It's about aligning our lifestyles with the natural world, realizing we're part of a bigger picture.
Okay, what now? Tell me more.
It's about recognizing how things like sunlight, air quality, even those electromagnetic fields can affect us, positively or negatively.
So instead of trying to outsmart nature, we work with it. I like that.
Exactly. That's where we see those ancient practices coming back. Sunlight, time in nature, grounding, reconnecting with the natural rhythms.
It's like we're rediscovering what our ancestors already knew. It's not about biohacking our way out of nature, but biohacking our way back to it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that brings us back to that big question. What does it really mean to optimize the human experience?
It's a big one. But after all this, it feels like it's bigger than just living longer or having more energy or even upgrading our brains. It's about finding that harmony within ourselves and with the world.
Absolutely. It's about being the best versions of ourselves, however we define that, and using all these tools and technologies to create a healthier, happier future for us and for everyone who comes after us.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. What part of your life are you most excited to enhance? And how can you do that in a way that feels right for you, that aligns with your values and your hopes for a better future? Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep biohacking your way to a more awesome you.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.